about yourself.
Yeah, my name is John Payne. I'm really hoping my communication degree pays off tonight with all this public speaking. My wife and I have lived in the district for 16 years now. She's the ESL teacher at Chestnut Ridge Elementary. And it was an interesting year with my son being in the high school in 9th grade, my one daughter in the middle school in 7th grade, and my other daughter finishing up at Fairbanks in 4th grade. I'm proud of the work that the board has done. I thought 3 years ago when I joined the board that it was going to be a challenge, and then this past year happened and didn't realize, what a great challenge it was going to be. But I'm proud of the work that the board did to get our district back to where we are today. I know we're not fully open, but with guidelines and restrictions from the state, we're doing the best we can, and it's good to see the kids back in school. I think I'd be a good board candidate for the next few years in a second term to continue this reopening process, and hopefully looking towards, in the fall, reopening 5 days a week and what that would look like as safely as we can do. And continuing to work with the budget. Frank Nardone does an excellent job with that. But obviously the after effects of the pandemic and the shutdown will be felt in the years to come. So that's definitely something that we need to look at. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, John. Crystal?
Hello, Crystal Schlenker. I have 3 kids in the district, 1 in middle school and 2 at Chestnut Ridge. I've been in the district for about 8 years, and I moved to here because coming from the inner city, the school's reputation in the community as well was a place that I wanted to raise my family. I graduated from RIT with a degree in business and deaf studies. There, I co-founded a startup company that was focused on the deaf and hard of hearing community. And so I learned a lot with that and that technology. And since then, I've been in 3 other startups as an analyst in an investment company, in special education and flexible seating, and now in an augmented reality enterprise software company. And so in those startups, I learned a lot of things, including how to be resourceful, wear many hats, build up an advisement team and network, present to thousands of people, including investors, and raise money, but also speaking my mind and doing a lot of research. So I've done all of those things and more. And my perspective is also unique. I grew up in the inner city, also was a single mother for about 9 years, and now I'm in a happily blended family. So I think that I've been fortunate to see the district and community from different perspectives so that I can appreciate the different family dynamics in the community as well. If I'm chosen for one of the 3 seats, I'll listen, speak up, ask questions, and consider the impact and outcomes for all stakeholders. So thank you for considering me.
Thank you, Crystal. Ramaya?
Hi, my name is Ramaya Sundin. I am currently a graduating senior from University of Rochester. I graduate in a couple weeks, so exciting. I have majors in brain and cognitive sciences and psychology. I also have minors in political science and dance. Through my time over the past 4 years, I have been involved in a host of different student organizations as a student leader. I have done large event programming and planning. I've done fundraising, budgeting. So I've been very involved as a student leader on campus. As well, I actually am a recent alumni from Churchville Chili. I graduated from senior high school in 2017. So I have a few different goals in running for school board. The first of those is creating a more foundational education experience for all students. So I thought that my education and my preparation for the college application process and for college itself was incredible at Churchville Chili, but my brother, for example, actually didn't go to college, and he didn't know how to make a resume or how to explore different career paths or even how to make a budget for himself. So I think that creating a foundational education experience for all students, no matter the path they choose to take, is essential in creating a more equitable society for everyone who's graduating from Churchville Chili. The second is creating more opportunities for artistic students and students that are interested in the arts. I'm an avid dancer and I am an amateur painter. So I think that creating those opportunities, especially with the stresses and different throws that have happened over the past year, is essential so that students can express themselves and try different things. And the third thing is creating more communication and diversity training opportunities for students. As I'm sure you've all experienced, we're living in very, very divided times. And I think that as students are entering the real world and adult life, it's essential that they're able to communicate their ideas and listen to new perspectives and then form their own ideas because of that. So I think that creating more opportunities within the classroom where they can explore their own ideas and explore different perspectives and different modes of, I guess, education is really important. So I'm excited to share my mission with all of you.
All right, thank you, Ramaya. Ashley?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Castelli, and I've been a resident just shy of 4 years. My daughter is a second grader at Fairbanks Elementary. I've recently had the pleasure of speaking with a group of folks who have asked some very thought-provoking questions on why I'm running and what I would do, on how I would handle type of questions. At the end of all the questions and the self-reflection following them, even more than I've already had in these weeks and months leading up to tonight, is that to be able to be a part of this board, I would be one voice of 9. Individually, we all bring to the table unique backgrounds, thoughts, ideas, beliefs, but collectively we'd be able to work together, learning from one another, gaining understanding, and use our critical thinking skills that allow us to help provide answers around supporting our teachers and staff, our taxpayers, and most importantly, our children. To be able to work with a team and the superintendent and helping to solve for and work on the various situations that arise on behalf of these people in our community would be a privilege. After this last year, we have all advocated so much for our kids in various ways. But the other week, sitting in the room, watching our board pour out their hearts and frustrations of what's been going on lately with the rules surrounding some kids, but not all kids returning to in-person instruction, I felt their hearts. And I think it made me realize that supporting our kids is and always will be a #1 priority for those involved, but we also had teachers and staff who were let down on going through these battles as well. We have other tax-paying citizens involved in the budget process who are frustrated that their neighborhood kids aren't in school or utilizing the sporting fields, being kids and enjoying themselves along with their peers. And we need to remember all of these people to make sure our community and our kids are supported and taken care of. The Bible teaches us to love one another and to carry each other's burdens. It teaches us to love our neighbors. And there's no greater example of all of those than right here on the board. I appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Ashley. Cheryl?
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Repass. I have lived in the district over 50 years. I'm a graduate myself of Churchville Chili. I have 2 children and my son graduated in 2020, which was a very difficult time for our family to get to that point and start to go through the pandemic. So my daughter is a sophomore at the high school. And we, as a family, have been very involved and committed to this school district, but my extensions of the involvement with this community is longstanding. And my father began the FRESBA PTO way back when it started, when the school had just been a newer school. So I learned very young to give back and engage with my community. My whole career ended up being centered on education. So I began my career here as a school psychologist, worked for 15 years, and then went to higher education where I train right now. So New York State public education is near and dear to my heart. So the extension of service, which is very big in my own upbringing and as well as my current career, of finding places where my passion can create service and opportunities in the community where I can give back. School board does that for me. I had a lot to learn in my first year. That's been, I am very grateful that the community has supported me for 15 years, and this would be my 6th time running. And I am grateful for what I've learned, opportunities of giving back. I agree with John. This was a very unique, difficult year for the Board of Education, the things that we were faced with. I love the continuity of what we did as a group, how we talked through the many rough pieces of trying to manage this, and offering support certainly for our administration where they had much to manage with very little preparation for how we would guide through that. So I'm appreciative of that work. I'm anxious to get back to other work that we were doing before this interruption. So I guess the best answer of why I want to run for school board is because I still have a passion for the work that we're doing and for this community. So I'm committed, and I will remain committed through this process. Thanks.
Thank you, Cheryl. Alicia?
Good evening. Thank you, everybody. My name's Alicia Nagel, and I've lived in this district for a total of over 28 years. Two of my girls attend CES, and the third one will be coming up in the next couple of years. It's really exciting to know that my children are going to grow up and go to the same school that my husband and I and many of our family members graduated from. I take a lot of pride in this district. I think the experiences that I had in this school, the entire system from start to finish, are what have created me and made me the person that I am today. And I hope that, I just look forward to the activities that my kids will be involved in, and hope that, I can be a source of positive, make a positive impact so that this school system stays as good as it was when I was here. So a little bit about why I'm running. The past year and has made me and many others question whether or not students were always able to be put first. And that whether or not we, the collective, we did everything that we could in order to get them into school and get the education that they deserved. I really found that I needed to be able to say that I've done everything that I could to make the public school experience a great experience for all of these kids. And I think the results of COVID are what have propelled me into running for the board, but I know that there's much more behind that I'm not aware of, but I would like to be a part of, and I'm willing to do whatever I can to have a positive impact. So some of the reasons, some of the things that I think I can contribute based on my experience and some of my thoughts are as follows. I began my career as a nurse, and I spent 4 years in the surgical step down and surgical ICU units. I followed that with a degree as a family nurse practitioner, though I never used it. Shortly after graduating, I took a position training the medical record system as a trainer, moved on to being an instructional designer and building out curriculum, and then following into 2 management positions. I've had up to 21 direct reports at any given time, and much of my career has included project management and leading teams. One of the most important things to me, regardless of my title or role or who I'm working with, is that we are walking through that project together, and we're going to get to the other side together, and we're going to accomplish a lot of great things and move through challenges. My 15-year career has helped me to prepare for this opportunity. A position on the board would allow me to extend my work ethic, my passion for process improvement and collaboration, and allowed me to serve this community and give back. Some of the things that I find value in are communication and in transparency. I think we saw that over the past year. I think it's very important to find ways to share information and allow conversation within the community so that people can weigh in on topics that matter most to them, and then find ways to gather that information and allow all of us advocating to make a difference and be effective. As a member of a team, I understand the importance of working together and presenting a unified message, regardless of differences in opinion. And lastly, I don't know what I don't know, and that's to be expected. So while I am learning, I will collaboratively get things done. I'll challenge things when they don't seem right, and I'll work with integrity and dedication. And hopefully now you know a little bit more about me and whether or not you feel like I would be a good representation for you and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Lori?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Hildebrandt. I did not grow up or go to school here. I have one son. He did not go to school here, and he's been out of school quite a while. But I did move here a little over 3 years ago. I love the community. I live in Churchville Green. It's a wonderful area to live in. I am a 36-year retired employee from SUNY Brockport. And in my capacity there, I was in the clerical area. I did purchasing for the maintenance department for most of the time I was there. I did work in student activities for a while, and I worked in the parking office for a while. I learned a great deal about working with students. We had student employees. We serviced students. We have resident students, dorms on campus. And our every day was dedicated to making their experience the best they could get, as far as living there, as far as learning. That was our goal, that was our mission. And I also served on search committees while I was at the college to fill positions such as affirmative action director, administrative director of facilities and planning. There were quite a few, the new president for the college. And I did, for 15 years, I also was a chief or assistant chief administrator to give teacher certification exams. That was a great experience. That was rewarding, very interesting. So I also was an officer in the Civil Service Union at the college for 22 years and an activist. And my training for that work, which was very important to me and my passion, I learned a great deal about dealing with many different people from different backgrounds. And I think that's one of my biggest perks, if you might say, or best features, is that I have no problem communicating with anyone, you know, that I've come in contact with from different backgrounds between the college and the union. What I think I would bring to this board, and I have served on boards. I served on the CSEA statewide board of directors. I was on the homeowners association board for a little while to fill in at the Green. And I think what I would bring mostly is I'm very organized. I'm very detailed in what I do. I will dig for facts wherever I can. I will speak up, but I'm willing to shut my mouth and learn too when I don't know what I'm doing. I'm happy to learn. And I think at first that's what I would have to do, is just listen and learn. And, you know, just get what I can from the experienced people already on the board. But I'm happy to get involved in the school system. I'm happy to go to sports events, and I just want to be part of the community. And now that I am retired, I have the time to commit. And I think that's a biggie. I know this is a big job and a big commitment for these people. And now I have the time to really give my all. So I would appreciate your consideration. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Lori. We're going to move to the question portion now, and we're going to alternate between pre-submitted questions and audience questions. So the first question, and we're going to start with John for the first question, and each one of you will answer the question. Again, try to keep it brief so everybody has an opportunity to answer. Here's the first one. What is your stance on getting all of grades K through 12 back to school full time, and what will you do to advocate for this?
My stance on getting K-12 back is, if we could have done it in September of 2020, we would have done it, and I would have advocated for it. I don't think there's anybody on the board that didn't want that. Even the district wanted it. But unfortunately with the state, with Frank's presentation earlier about the state aid that we get, we can't just turn our nose at what the state sets forth with guidelines and restrictions and say, well, we're going to open anyways, because then, you know, that state aid comes in jeopardy, and then you're looking at cuts and whatnot. So I am all for the kids being back full time, 5 days a week. And it's just a matter of working with the other board members, working with the district, and, you know, advocating for our school district, which the district has been doing over the last couple of months, with county officials and with the state. But once again, it's unfortunately playing their game to a certain extent. So, you know, I'm all for it, and I really think that the district has done all it can to get the kids back. But, you know, it's just a matter of us continuing to push forward and advocate. And, you know, we got 7/8 back, you know, K6 was nice, and we got 7/8. So it's, you know, just that little bit that we have to keep pushing forward with.
Crystal?
Yeah, my stance is I've got 3 kids, so I want them in school too, but this, you know, there's certain guidelines that we have to follow in order to get our state funding. And so as the new regulations come out about what we can and can't do, as long as we consider what kinds of things we can do to put into a plan to accommodate those restrictions, and just comment with what, when the guidelines change, we we change with it. And so if we can do that, then I think we're good.
Okay. Ramaya.
I will definitely start by saying that we have lost so much. Everyone has lost so much. People have lost lives, family members, homes, memories. I think that as a psychologist, it's essential to start moving kids back into schools. They've lost so much. These are essential moments of their lives. You know, they're so young. These are essential memories and moments that they are losing by being at home. These are, I can tell you as a student, it's difficult to learn from home when nap time is so close, you know, it's hard. I completely sympathize with the students, and I think that as soon as we can return to in-person fully K through 12 classes, I am all for it. I think that as soon as we can do so safely, which seems like it'll be in the near future, I am all for it. So.
Thank you, Ramaya. Ashley?
Definitely, you know, I've been coming to the board meetings recently and really trying to vocalize my concerns, my desire to see all grades K through 12 in schools. And I learned a lot this year because of the funding and the restrictions and the guidance that we have to adhere to as a school district. Lori has to hear from me pretty much after every single meeting. You know, one of the big questions I asked after the last meeting where everybody was so frustrated with the restrictions still for 7th through 12th at the time. I said, where are we at legally? You know, what can we do? How can the community lock arms with the school, with the district? You know, I want it to happen for everybody, K through 12, and I'm not afraid to ask those questions. I'm not afraid to help encourage those things and work together as a community member or as a board member.
Thank you, Ashley. Cheryl?
I don't think anybody has wanted kids to be back to school K-12 more than me and more than Lori and this board talking about this. I have said from the beginning that in this pandemic, people have suffered, but nobody has suffered as much as education has suffered. Kids' education and leadership in education. And I think one of the problems that we've experienced in this is the narratives that are out there have been so confusing to our community. But I have one step in higher ed and one step in public education. And I'm going to tell you that the difficulties that navigating what is being rule structured for us to do in New York State has been difficult at both of those levels. None of it is made up. No matter what narratives came out, the most difficult thing, we're seeing things that the community was being told that just absolutely was not the truth. And navigating those narratives. So yes, I do believe we are coming to a place where we can get K through 12 back. I would have loved to have given that to my own kid this year who's in high school, who's still on a hybrid model. But what is crucial is, I think, dedicated from the beginning, our administration has taken our most fragile and tried to get them back as soon as possible, which didn't get talked about a lot, but our kids with IEPs, special education, our most fragile learners, and then our most young learners, finding a way to try to get our young learners back. So yes, K-12, I think it's happening at Churchville in the best order that we can make it happen with eliminating the suffering as quick as we can eliminate it. But it has been a frustration this year, I will say.
Thank you, Cheryl. Alicia?
I've said it before, but I believe K through 12 should be back in school full time. And if it was up to me, it would have happened after the first quarter of last year. Well, I'm a rule follower, and I do believe that we need to wait for not guidance, but we need to wait for restrictions to be lifted or modified so that we can bring them back. I don't accept them. I think this is one place where we need to challenge and we need to push for those guidelines and rules and restrictions to be changed, because what we know to be true is that there is a ton of evidence that supports that kids can come back to school safely with limited transmission and with less COVID positive rates than the adult population. In addition to that, as many have mentioned, the benefits significantly outweigh the risks to have our kids in school.
Thank you, Alicia. Lori?
I've been going through some of the past board minutes, catch up a little bit. And I absolutely would love to see all the grades get back to school. These kids want to be together. They learn better in a classroom situation. There's no doubt about it. I have young nephews and they miss it so much, and it's difficult to be that disciplined and learn sitting at home. I mean, it's too easy to take a break or fall asleep or play with a toy or whatever is there. In the same respect, I do feel that we'd be pretty upset with the government if they didn't take charge and do what they could to keep us all safe. I mean, the people that we've lost, the family members, the friends, it's stifling. So I understand the side of the government. I just would hope and advocate for them to look at each situation standing alone and not clump a lot of schools into the same pattern. You know, if this school has been doing what it's supposed to and the numbers are down for positive COVID cases, new COVID cases, then they should take that into consideration for this school and not lump them into other schools that may not have done as well. So I would advocate in any way I can. If it means going to Albany and talking to legislatures, if it means writing letters, whatever we'd have to do, I absolutely would be advocating for it.
Thank you, Lori. For the next question, we're going to take to the audience. Michael, would you like to come on up? We're going to start with Crystal this time and move on down and finish with John. Okay.
Hindsight is always 20/20. However, knowing what we now know, do you think the district did what was best for the children for the first 3 quarters of the year? And what would you have done differently if it was solely your decision?
I think that hindsight 2020 is a really great way of looking at what you've done to see what you would do next. And it's always easy to look back and say, oh man, it would have been really great if I did it in this other way. I think that the way that our district handled things was done well and quick to get something going. I know that a lot of where I saw struggling with my kids anyway, elementary and middle, were the elementary school kids really lacked the amount of work and stimulation that they had gotten in school. So I know we couldn't have anticipated this ever happening at all, but I guess, trying to figure out other ways of getting the kids stimulated with different resources. Wasn't always really clear about what they could do or not do. And we stumbled through the first time of it with finding information and figuring it all out. But I think that we've also learned a lot and how we could apply it moving forward. So if I were going to change anything, it would probably be just having portals with information, which now we have, I think it's the C-Link, or we have a newsletter now. And, I think we've learned a lot where now, hey, what about if a kid has a sick day? They have the resources to learn virtually from home and not fall behind. So I think we've learned a lot out of this, and, everywhere, that we learned a lot here that we can apply moving forward to other scenarios.
Thank you. Ramaya?
It's a good question. Like you said, no one could have predicted this. I completely agree with what you're saying. And it's hard to look back and say, what could we have done differently when everything was coming at everyone at 100 miles an hour, whether it was board members, but also the teachers and the students and the parents. I think that looking back on the past year, an essential aspect of everything that I do, and I think an essential aspect in moving forward and in looking back at the past year, is open communication and transparency as much as possible. I think that, like you mentioned, a newsletter is incredibly helpful. This time was so confusing for so many people, whether it was what's coming from the CDC or what's coming from the government or what's coming from the school. What do we do? How do we react? I think that moving forward over the next year, we have a lot of resources now that we didn't have a year ago today. that will really help us be successful in the future. So for example, some of the foundations for this communication and transparency has already been laid down. As well, I think that one massive aspect that the students are missing at this point is the social aspect. So for example, if they can only go one day per week safely, as according to how things will move forward in the future, which we still don't know, but if they can only go one time per week, could we perhaps set up after school programs in small groups? Could we set up pods so that only a certain number of people are seeing each other at a time? We now know that contact tracing and limiting the number of people you see is incredibly helpful in limiting the spread. So could we create systems whereby people are only seeing a certain number of people? For example, right now I'm in the middle of planning senior week, and they are having us only sign up for events with certain people, which are all traced. And if one of those people were to test positive, then everyone in that pod would be alerted and then would take the necessary steps to proceed safely. So I think that some of those aspects, in addition to some of the communication transparency that has been expanded on over the past year, will make things much more successful over the past year. And hopefully as we now exit the pandemic, although things will definitely be changed forever, it sounds like.
Thank you, Ramiah. Ashley?
Hindsight 2020, that's hard because mama bear crying all 30 weeks with my daughter. No, it felt like we weren't doing enough. But sitting in on the meetings and learning, like I've mentioned, from listening to the board and watching and paying attention to what's coming from the governor versus local county. And we're in a local county restriction right now, not necessarily the state restriction. So where as a county can we go? And we need to pay attention to, is it state, is it local? Who's telling us what? And then I think we need to work together as a county. And I wish that we would have done more of that, including with, or at least have the transparency. If it was happening, I don't know, but working with the private schools that are and have been open 5 days a week, how are they making it work? And I know that they don't have the same funding restrictions and that they need as we do it as a public school. But that has been a huge frustration as a community to look and see that there are private schools. And if you can afford a private school, your child gets to go 5 days a week. So as a public school, it felt like, what the heck? So hindsight 2020, at least without not having that transparency from the district and the board, I don't think that we did it. But I think that we're really getting there. And I think the communication has been really great lately. And I've loved learning from everybody, and I've loved advocating and partnering with you guys.
Thank you, Ashley. Cheryl?
I think one of the things you're hearing up here tonight is finding a way to communicate all that was going on every step of the way. Hindsight, probably we could have done more in the beginning part, but if you would have seen the moving target and how many times leadership was involved with meetings with the county, with the state, it was weekly, if not daily, other superintendents, other advocacy groups, legislatures, writing letters. We also had a district to run, and teachers were under enormous pressure to learn a new platform overnight. So the leadership to support our own teachers, our staff, what they were expected to do. Honestly, I don't know where more time would have been given to that. But what we saw in hindsight is our community suffered from that. They were looking for more. Families were under enormous pressure, and we didn't have a good roadmap to give them because our roadmap was changing. That's truthful. That's what was happening to us at the time. But looking back at this, could there have been other avenues? You know, maybe there could have been more avenues spent at the board meeting to do that. But was there everything behind the scenes being done? I can tell you that's what I saw being done every single week, I don't even remember what the standard day was, but the superintendent was at those meetings. And so it was just a very difficult thing to navigate. And again, education paid the most.
Thank you, Cheryl. Alicia?
So what would I have done differently? I feel like, you know, there's a common theme, there's advocacy, pushing, communication, transparency. I really, as a parent, would have liked to see more communication, knowing that communication also takes time. I truly believe if we could have worked as a collective, if we were afforded the opportunity to even have some insight to what was being worked out, even as soon as the 10th week of school, could we all have started to advocate and send our emails and make our phone calls 20 weeks sooner and potentially put ourselves in a position where our K through 5, which, you know, is, again, going back to some of the evidence, would have been what I would have promoted first, is at least getting our K through 5 back based on evidence. And, you know, could we have done that within the 20th week and help those students and help those teachers? And I don't want to discredit all the work that was done. I believe there was an enormous amount of work done. I believe that it was taxing on everybody involved.
Thank you, Alicia. Lori?
When I think about this, I mean, nobody could have expected this. Nobody alive has been through something like this. I mean, I read back to the big flu epidemic in 1918, and I think we were probably had a lot more advantage with our social media and our internets and everything else to stay in touch. I think we handled it much better than we would have without the technology that we have. I couldn't possibly criticize what the schools have done and not done. It must have been almost an hourly change to try to figure out the best way to handle this, how to keep in touch. The good thing I saw out of all of this, my son mentioned it to me first, and then I saw it, is that families were getting closer. Families were spending more time together. And as tough as that is, especially when you have parents that work and they're not trained teachers, it was nice to see families together and families getting through this together and families keeping each other safe. So I can't sit and criticize what could have been done better. Maybe along the way, I had my own opinions. I think the best thing to do is listen to the experts, the health experts, and not listen to rumors. Educate our children so that they understand that these mandates, these rules and regulations, how important they are and why they're important. Because we all know that young people like to group together and hang out in cliques and have fun. That's really tough for them not to be able to do that. And I understand that. So I don't know that I could suggest a better way. I would say, let's just keep doing what we've been doing until we've beat this thing, because we're not quite there yet.
Thank you, Lori.
No.
John?
I'm not going to rehash what everybody else has said that I agree with. You know, I think communication from the onset could have been a little more frequent and clearer. I think the other thing people forget about, though, is that our district was the only district that had synchronous learning as the learning model. And so, yeah, your kids aren't in school all the time, but they're still getting taught by their teachers every day. I have a friend, he's on the west side in another school district, and his kids' days home from school, they had packets of busy work. Whereas in our district, they were trying to educate the kids at home and the kids in school. So I think that's something that gets lost on the community when we look at, hey, my kid's not in school, and I get that because my 3 kids weren't in school. At the same time, the district was doing a lot to try to reach to those kids at home while reaching those kids in schools. That was very taxing for the teachers and for the staff to try to coordinate all those efforts. And that's why we left Wednesdays free for them, so that they could reorganize, so they catch up, so they could have collaborations and meetings with their grades or with their teams to, you know, get through the next 2 days to provide the best education that we could to our students. So I understand everyone's gripe about not being in person more, but once again, that's following state guidelines. A couple of months ago, when the state kind of loosened up and said, hey, K-12 can go back, or they lowered it to 3 feet. And then the county said, well, yeah, no, we're not going to back that. You know, the district did reach out and say, hey, instead of looking at Monroe County as a whole, can you just take Churchville? Because we had a low positivity rate. So can you separate us and do us by zip code versus, you know, the rest of the county? And the county shot that down. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that the community might not be aware of, that the district is advocating for our kids to try to get us back to as normal as we can, as fast as we can.
Thank you, John. I think we have time for one more question. So I'm going to take another one from the pre-submitted questions. And this time, Ramaya, you'll answer first. So the question submitted was, currently, most of the school districts in Monroe County have a pending lawsuit demanding that they reopen. Do you think this is an appropriate way to address disagreement with governing agencies?
That's an interesting question. It's interesting, I guess I would say, because it seems as though what the national mandate is different from the county mandate, which is already a bit confusing for everyone involved, I'm sure. I think that if there has already been, as you had mentioned, communications with the head of the county about separating it based on zip code, then the next step really is to address the county through legislative practices. I think that as long as the CDC safely says that we can do 3 feet apart, then I'm not sure why that's kind of being picked and chose, I guess, based on the counties. I suppose with the inner city, especially, I'm not sure how many people are familiar, it is a lot harder there to go back to 3 feet distancing. And it is a lot harder because a lot of people that are living within the inner city are working essential jobs and they're going, and their positivity rate is a lot higher. However, with Churchville Chili, if the rate is low enough and if there's a way to safely reopen, then I think that pursuing an avenue that addresses the legislative actions done by the county, it might just be the best next step if it's already been addressed in other ways.
Thank you, Ramaya. Ashley?
I do believe the lawsuit is against the school district, yes, and the county and the state. And legal pressure it's hard, but it was one of my first questions that I asked recently to hear. Does it stink to go that way? Sure does. But in a world that we're in right now, what more can we do when emails, phone calls, and walking around with picket signs is falling on deaf ears right now? So outside of doing everything we can, besides pulling out our hair and screaming and dancing in the streets, but legal pressure, it's a thing. It's a thing in America. So is it right? I don't know. We'll find out, I guess. But I don't oppose legal action when I've advocated for it myself recently, with putting pressure on the county to allow the 9th through 12th grades to come in full in-person instruction as well.
Thank you, Ashley. Cheryl?
I would say I'm not in favor of the legal action of lawsuit. Lawsuit is suing the community using taxpaying dollars with what resources that we have to defend our school districts amidst a sea of difficulties that we were having. So to take more money from the community so that we have advocacy for ourselves, which is what we always have to do when a lawsuit is directed towards a school district. We have that happen, and we have to prepare ourselves with legal advice. And if you price legal advice that is weighting the community again with the problems and the weights that we already have, I think the lawsuits that have gone around regarding this, I would be very surprised if the impact gets where it needed to get, and that it will solve the problem. I understand the frustration of it. I understand that. And our community was feeling that frustration, but pending economy issues on our community to satisfy it that way, I didn't see that as a good resolution.
Thank you, Cheryl. Alicia?
Right, so I think just in general, everyone always hopes that nothing would come to the point of a lawsuit. I think, however, it is one way to apply pressure. And over the course of the last year, just listening, hearing, watching the news, reading articles, there were so many other businesses and individuals that sued in order to retain the right to hold an essential business and continue their productivity. And that's just one kind of example. So while I think it's maybe not the best way to go about things, I can't say what others were thinking. And I have to imagine that, like most of us, there was a point of desperation that was reached, and it was one way to apply pressure.
Thank you, Alicia. Lori?
I have to agree that it is a waste of resources right now in this situation, maybe not in every situation. I think it's a waste of time and energy with everything else that the government has to think about, that the citizens have to think about, that the actions you have to take. It's an everyday process, trying to get people vaccinated, trying to keep businesses going without going bankrupt, but without sacrificing our health and our safety. And I think in this situation, it's kind of a selfish attitude. When people are going into these, not so much as for the benefit of many, I feel like a lot of these lawsuits are for benefit of the individual more so. And they need to see the bigger picture. The governor has been great about putting out, you can get on an email list, and every single day he updates the new COVID cases, if the COVID cases have gone down, the hospitalizations, the deaths, unfortunately, everything, anything that comes out new, the vaccinations, where they are. There's so much information on these every single day. And that's a lot to keep up with. And I just feel like our concentration, I understand the frustration. We all have it. I lost 3 vacations last year. It's very frustrating, but I think for the good of everyone, that people should think twice about lawsuits at this time.
Thank you, Lori. John?
I think it's easy to use school districts as a scapegoat and go after them. I think going after the county or state, why is it okay for Governor DeSantis in Florida to open up, but Governor Cuomo is still keeping us locked down? So why aren't we looking at that versus the individual school districts? A lot of arguments I've heard were, well, this school or that school's been open K-6, 5 days, the entire year. Well, if you're talking one of the outlying counties that has a smaller school population, maybe a bigger school building, well, yeah, they can do that because they're still working within those guidelines. But there was a lot of politics involved, unfortunately, with all of this. Why can Onondaga County, that's a very similar county to ours and make up Liverpool School District over there, why could they open up K-12 and the county backed them? But that didn't happen over here. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but I feel like it's just an easy scapegoat to blame the school districts when you have to look above the school districts and see who's coordinating and orchestrating all of this.
Thank you, John. Crystal?
I think here within our own school district, the progress that we've been making has really shown that we're heading in the right direction. And in talking about a lawsuit, it would take away resources and time that we could be committing to planning out other alternative ways that we could set the kids up or use space differently like we have been already. And with safety as our number one, keeping the kids safe is really important. And so, if the guidelines are set, then those are the experts in that. And if we follow them and come up with ways that we can bring them in school, that's one thing, but to bring lawsuits into it would, I think, waste our time and our taxpayer dollars to putting in an effort where we're already making progress in.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank all of our candidates for coming tonight, spending your time with us and answering questions, and good luck to all of you. And that will end our candidate forum for
Thank you,
tonight.
Mary.